to call this meeting to order. For the allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now keeping, these proceedings are being recorded for the sole purposes of preparing accurate written minutes. Recordings are overwritten following the approval of the minutes and then all unofficial records of these proceedings. I don't see any mess. I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 16th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Sure, second.
I have a first and second, any discussion?
What's her name?
Sarah.
Sarah.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor? Number 5, Stephanie, Polowitsky, from HRG, discuss the carbon comprehensive plan and the Greenways Trails public survey.
So hello, everyone. Hi, Stephanie Molesky with HRG, and I have Ashley Eichlin with me here this evening. We'll wait for folks to come in.
Ashley, how do you spell the last name?
EICHLIN. So
You got this. Thank you.
Stephanie,
yes,
can I just comment and say, I've worked with Stephanie for probably over 30 years. And Stephanie was the trail manager at the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority, the same as the DNL Heritage Corridor, or Federal and State Heritage Area, degree in landscape architecture, and involved in trails in the Northeast for many years. So it's good to have her with HRG.
I'm excited to be working with Dennis and Dawn and all of you. And David too. David's been a joy to work with. Exciting to be here in Carbon County. You have a wonderful place to live, work, and play. I only get to work and play here. So today we're going to focus on an update on the comprehensive plan and the Greenway Trails and Open Space study that HRG has been contracted to work on. Are you able to get it into presentation mode? There we go. So the county, through David, we were hired to, well, let's back up. The agenda for today, we're gonna give a quick overview of what our project is. We're gonna look at what the potential goals are for the Greenway Trails and Open Space. Talk to you about who are key stakeholders that we need to be talking to. Talk about your open space strategy or plan that you have in place or are developing, and what your priority areas are. So what is a Greenways Trails and Open Space study? We are looking at all of your natural resources and seeing what needs to be, what are important corridors, whether it's for wildlife management, plant communities, water resources, or for human needs such as recreation or for a good, healthy environment. We're going to be coming up with some recommendations on how we think that you could best manage those facilities. And then we're going to be developing strategies on how to proceed with your open space program and with trail planning. Any questions about that? So the comprehensive plan and the Greenway Trails and Open Space are under the same contract, but the comprehensive plan study is moving started out a little bit quicker than the Greenway Trails and Open Space. We want to get a big picture understanding of what is going on in the county. And now we're starting to dive into the details of greenways, trails, and open space. So you could see on this dual timeline that we have here, the comprehensive plan is a little bit further along. They've started that visioning process. They're towards the end of it. They're starting to prepare the plan and come up with an implementation strategy, the very preliminary beginnings of that. And this fall, we're going to be working late this summer, early fall, working with the study committee on that. And the Greenway Trails and Open Space study, we're still in the data collection side of it. We're still trying to understand what's going on in the county, how things are operating, what those special areas are that need to be preserved, what connections there are in the county, and how much you've progressed since your last open space study, Greenway Trails and Open Space study, what has been accomplished, what hasn't been. Is it still relevant? Does it need to be accomplished? Are there new items that have come up or new, I don't want to say issues, but new things in the county that have been brought to your attention that now something else is a priority? So we'll start talking about those things today. And we're going to synthesize all of that data and then start making some recommendations. In your previous study, the recommendations really didn't flow into an implementation plan. There were recommendations that were made. And sometimes the partners that would be in charge of those recommendations and implementing them were identified. Sometimes they weren't. So we want to make sure that when we go ahead and update that study, that we're providing you with a clear plan on how to move forward and who are the key people that should be involved, and what the timeline is to make those things happen. And if there's funding involved, which 99.9% of the things need money to make them happen, what are some of the possible funding streams that are out there that can help you to implement these things? And when I say you, I don't necessarily mean Carbon County. Might be the municipalities or the organizations that you're representing that are the key player in making something happen. So it really, to make this plan work, everybody needs to be working together, towards the same goals in general, and everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. So trying to identify what are those things that need to be done and who are the best partners to make that happen. So, in the next slide. So we started this discussion about what are the potential goals for the greenways, trails, and open space study. So obviously greenways, trails and connectivity, open space, three main categories of the study. But subcategories, farmland preservation, historic and cultural sites and how they tie into the connectivity and what draws people to certain parts of the county. Outdoor recreation. It's a key player in this county and in Pennsylvania, really important. And then the idea of conservation and ecotourism. So what are your thoughts on these goals? Are we missing anything? Are things duplicated up there? You could talk.
Well, we tied into historical and cultural with heritage tourism. That is kind of the title of what's happened in Jim Thorpe after all these years, and with the canal and the trail. Some of the historical sites that have been developed because of that.
Very good point. Ashley is seriously taking notes over there. Any other thoughts?
Might be a stupid question, but what's the ecotourism? Does that include like agritourism? And is it just,
Well, you could lump it together or we could separate it out. Right. You could lump all the tourism together and have subcategories.
because that's like huge in this town, but then, there's different types of tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that seems to be a big emphasis in the county is the agritourism.
Well, it's growing.
Yeah.
So with all of these categories, are there projects that will coincide with these?
Yes.
Now,
So we're developing these themes and then everything will fit into those themes. In,
I mean, I work in New Jersey, I spend most of the time in New Jersey, so I always get jealous when I see all these arboretums and places that have beautiful parks with massive different types of trees, and I know that's one thing we're 100% of the county missing out on. Our foothold is recreation and, you know, all those things that we have up there, we nothing of the sort.
a different type of recreation. Different type of facilities. Yeah.
I think this one, I think is the definition for ecotourism. I think a Boulder Field, the attraction of
Yep.
Boulder Field. I think of the IGAP Nature Center. So attractions that, natural features that draw people to them.
I think what you said about tourism and then some subcategories makes a lot of sense. They overlap. But lumping them into one big category with subcategories, it seems to make a lot of sense for the plan. At least now, when you start writing it, it might not.
I mean, you're familiar with this county, obviously, like, are we in the right ballpark here with? Obviously, so like, did you come up with those potential goals or is that?
We came up with them through discussions that we had with the committee. And the committee was starting to set what are their goals and priorities. Okay, what are the big themes that we want to carry through in this report? We're updating your 2014 study, 14,
But past
Well,
December 27, 2013.
2013. So it's 10, 11 years later. Things have evolved. Are they still applicable? But we're trying to identify, well, what is the priority now? What are the things you really want to focus on and make a priority? And then we find how other things fit in as subcategories and not as dominant in a presence, but it's still a priority.
Like with like historical and cultural sites, I mean, we have tons of that, that maybe should be, you know, more utilized as well. You know, like, you look at the canal and things of that sort, you know, how historical that is. And like, that 2013, things have really like come a long way since then, that's for sure. You know, we're really on the map, Carbon County, compared to maybe back in 2013, we were on the map, but really on the map now.
They're established,
Yeah,
well established. In some areas and other areas aren't. They're looking at how do we become established? Like Jim Thorpe figured it out.
Yeah.
There's things going on here and there's other municipalities that want to jump on that bandwagon, but maybe it's not appropriate for them to be doing the history or the ecotourism. Maybe the agritourism is more specific for them. Because you don't want the same thing duplicated throughout the or throughout the county.
Right.
Because then there's nothing to really draw you to the different areas of the county. You want to celebrate what is a success in each county and what the history was of each part of the county. Not necessarily the same exact things in each thing. So some communities may be trail towns. Some may be more of an agritourism or the wineries or you know, the Christmas tree farms or a fall foliage festival or something. So trying to find what those unique things are throughout the county and capitalizing on them. So that everybody gets to celebrate in the success of the county rising.
I just had a question. Where do our like lakes and streams and waterways fall into this?
So let's see, it could be under conservation. They could be in the greenways. Could be in the open space. So it's, the way these goals are set up, I would say they fall within. But water resources could become a goal if that's what rises and bubbles to the top of the discussions.
Stephanie, with that question, and not to get too academic, but years we've been dealing with this. There are greenway corridors that are more natural, and then there are those that are more recreational. And I'm sure you're gonna look at both.
Yeah, so when you look at greenway corridors, you're looking, what is the purpose of that corridor? Is it a wildlife corridor? Is it a human transportation corridor? Is it a river that also has human transportation? So the boundaries can be really blurred in some of them. But looking at, what your priorities are, and if there's a migratory animal area, usually migratory birds, what are their specific needs? Then you would be focusing on that versus you have the river and that greenway corridor, which if you told them you could no longer have recreation on it, I think everybody in the county and Pennsylvania would start screaming, what do you mean you can't have recreation on it? So you really have to look at what is the purpose of that greenway? What are the needs, the human needs of that corridor, and how you balance those things? So as we're going through this, we'll be looking at some of those greenway corridors that are very wildlife specific. And then we'll be looking at corridors that are more human transportation. In one project that we're working on, there's scenic byways. And they're greenway corridors because they flow through that part of the state in a very outdoor recreation area, but they are definitely human oriented. They are not wildlife in any way, or even following streams or waterways in any way. So it depends on your region and what you're looking at, without getting academic. All right. So we'll look at expanding tourism into the historical and cultural tourism, ecotourism, and agritourism. We're having one categories for that. So maybe our historical and cultural sites come out and fall under tourism one. Any other suggestions? All right, we don't want to beat this to a bush.
So yeah, I'm thinking of auto tours, and we developed years ago the Audubon Auto Tour that starts from Jim Thorpe and does a 52-mile loop of what John James Audubon did, and some of the signs are still in, some of the signs are gone. We also did a heritage auto tour on the story of the Molly Maguires that connected Jim Thorpe. I don't know if you still can pick up because we don't have DVDs in our cars anymore.
There's an app for that.
There's an app for that. So I don't even know if they still have it, but you would pick up the item at the train station at the visitor center, and it would connect you to Tamaqua and to Pottsville. So it would connect you to the DNL Heritage area and Schuylkill Heritage area, telling the story of the Molly Maguires. So I don't know if that really still exists, but a lot of time and effort and money was put into those auto tours. I mean, I really would like to see the Audubon Auto Tour, continue or be revitalized in some way.
So that's something I joke about, there's an app for that, but that might be something that if one of the partners takes on and develops
Right.
an app that has these different types of tours in it, and whether it's a historical tour, winery tour, or
Right.
trail tour.
And so in that one, it would, I believe, early on, the Lehigh Valley Audubon group was involved. I know Diane Maddle from the Environmental Center at Jacobsburg, or at Nescapec, was involved with that. So, yeah, you're right, a partner that would carry that forward.
Probably do that on your phone, you could probably get an app and then, you just hit it and then you do
Right.
the tour.
So much easier.
I mean, they do a lot of geocaching too, so like you could be in one portion of the county and log on to an app, like a social media app, and it will pull up like hashtag, like, let's say you're in on the canal lot B, and it'll have like, you know, the pictures on.
Yeah, there's a lot now that technology offers us, as long as your cell phone works.
Yeah, there
It's
is.
just down outside of Ocean City. We go down there every year since I was a kid. And this year, our cell phone service. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. They must have had a cell tower down or something. As I was at a grocery store and I look across the street and I'm like, I don't have any cell service. And I look up and there's a Verizon store and I'm like, I have Verizon and there's a store and I have no service. So, yeah, I mean, could have put a DVD in at one time and listen to that as you're driving around. They had those other types of audio tours that were going on. And now you're seeing that they're using apps. You go to a historic site and you can download the app and listen to the tour as you go around. So it's definitely something that a partner could capitalize on and really you could celebrate what's going on in the county. All right. Next slide. Keep up on time. So one of the key things that we're gonna be doing is getting out and talking to stakeholders. And some of you, your names are up here that we are targeting. We wanted to ask you if you had any other suggestions on some key people that we should be talking to about greenways or trails or open space, the bond referendum, how that went down, the work that went into it.
East Penn Township, Bill Schwab is retired and a retired attorney, but I think he's still on the township board. And they're doing along this beautiful, amazing called Lizard Creek that connects East Penn Township in Schuylkill County. You know, a number of years ago, Don helped acquire land. It's called the Golden Trail. And Chris Stroller, who's on the list and no longer with Wildlands, but we're working with them on connecting this greenway corridor along the Lizard Creek. And so, Bill has a wealth of knowledge.
Did you ever think about getting any USDA people involved, like local, like NRCS or any of those people that
We
work?
have not identified them yet. That's a good idea.
You know, even Penn State Extension,
Mhm.
perhaps, you know, those two.
Is there an extension office in this county?
There is, right near the Mock Jump Lake.
Okay. Yes, I did see that the other day.
I mean, they're like an educating arm to help, you know,
Mhm.
but like, the, NRCS, would be good, you know. Even maybe through the conservation district, you know, you could pick up on that too, so.
Yeah, Darren D, who's the key for all the tree farms? I know the former Penn State
Yeah,
Ag.
Paul Sheeler used to be involved with it, but,
Retired.
yeah, he retired.
He's still around, but he's retired.
Yeah, but you know, if you call the carbon, extension office, you'll get, they can direct you to the right person.
Because these tree farms do more than just grow trees for Christmas trees.
Right.
They have all these festivals now. And it's become that
Oh, yeah.
agritourism thing.
Well, that's like the largest ag commodity, you know, the Christmas trees.
I have a texted in suggestion from Ann Hutchinson, who is on.
Hi.
And she says, what about
Hello.
Hello? She said hello. Do you want to just say it, Ann?
I'm not sure if I can be heard very well. I just wondered about sort of connecting people to the outdoors and interviewing a stakeholder in the healthcare community, especially mental health. There's a lot of focus on the outdoors and mental health. I'm not sure if there's someone at the Lehigh Valley Health Center or if they're doing any programming outdoors.
Penn State does a lot of mental health. They have a lot of specialists in that. You can take courses all the time on that if you want to. I get them all the time.
But who's-
As a part of the
St. Luke's has a
comprehensive
facility,
plan,
don't they? St. Luke's has a mental health program for the
Yeah.
county.
We probably do, have to, I would say. So.
Or even just from health in general. I mean, there's St. Luke's, there's, you
Yeah,
have like the Lehigh Valley Health Network, which is, what is that now?
Jefferson.
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 There's a county MHMR mental health. Isn't there a department in the county?
Yeah. So.
Some
yeah.
counties have it, some of it.
I think we have it.
It's in Lehigh.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, on,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Did you get all that, Ashley?
It-
Very good. Thank you, Anne. Anybody else? Anyone?
I was gonna say Bruce Markovich, maybe from Lansford. He's the borough manager, right? Bruce is, I think.
He's a borough council.
Borough council. He's just very driven with the refurbishing of the train station that's there now. Very involved in, I think, along with that.
Okay.
I work with him on some committees with repurposing. He's really, I think he'd be a good resource, a good
Excellent.
person to talk to, and because that's an area that we all know needs a lot of attention. And it could be, I have this information, Markovich, Markovich, Bruce.
So close as one letter off. Thank you.
I would think the Vogels also, besides Jerry, who has one of the,
Yeah.
there's 4 rafting liveries on the Lehigh and he's got Lehigh Outdoor Center and Jim Thorpe River Adventures, but Pocono Whitewater, it has the big bike shop here in town and the rafting and, what's the paintball? Skirmish. So, Pocono Whitewater and the Vogels, I think would be another great.
Yes.
Do the outfitters here all get along that we could have a focus group with them?
Yes.
Absolutely.
In fact-
Okay.
In fact, there is, I don't know what the title is, they all meet together maybe once or twice a year. All the 4, because I met with them when I created the Lehigh River Watershed Fund. I forget their name, but
Okay.
there's an association of those 4 rafting companies. Obviously, any one of them would know that.
That would be good to get in.
Now,
It's a tough time of the year to,
right, it's
Talk
their
to
busy
them.
time and the fall and the whitewater releases, they're scrambling right now. The winter time's the best time to talk to them.
I hope we get to them before then, but we'll see what happens.
Would it be worth maybe speaking to someone from one of the ski lodges like Blue Mountain?
So, yeah, we could do that. Barb has been very active on the committee,
Yeah,
so
maybe.
I've gotten a lot of information from her already. Maybe she does have somebody else that she would like targeted.
Yeah,
So she's
Jim-
trying to.
Yeah, she is. She's trying to retire. It's not working well, but.
Well, I think
Yeah.
Jen can understand that.
Jim Daly would be a good.
Jim Daly?
Yeah, he's in command and he has a lot of history from when way back to now. So he'd be really good.
All right, so we got some more municipal folks. We got some more, recreation folks to talk to. The big trail is the DNL trail. Ashley and I have both worked on the Chestnut Ridge Trail. We understand they've presented the travel plan.
Yes, we gave our comments on the draft and then there's gonna be a public meeting after they make those adjustments.
The Appalachian Trail, we spoke to Mark Zakutansky. He was also a quasi municipal representative of Penn Forest. Penn Forest is on the big steering committee through, I just drew a blank on his name. I'm sorry.
The representative for Penn Forest?
Yeah. Patrick Holland, yes.
That's her husband.
Oh, okay.
I was like, do I say it? Do I?
Sorry, I was drawing a blank on there.
You know, Kidder I think they have a trail organization and a fund through the community foundation. Kidder has an active group of interested people that started to develop a trail system,
Okay,
Kidder Township.
all right, we'll figure out who to talk to there. Is it municipal driven or is it grassroots driven?
I'm not sure. I think it's grassroots, but the township manager would know.
Okay. Okay. We understand Penn Forest is doing an active transportation study. The county is involved in an active transportation study through NEPA Alliance, the MPO. So there's a lot going on in this county right now. Anybody else? And Dan, I'm sorry, I think I got the name of the Lehigh Nature Center.
That's close enough.
I was on autopilot typing things in and. All
And
right,
when she mentioned active transportation plan, I think next month the consultant in NEPA is looking to have an open house session, for people to come in and give their inputs and stuff like that, so that's just a heads up on that coming up.
okay. Next slide. All right, so Open Space Advisory Board, we're here to pick your brain and understand what your strategy is, now that you have this bond passed, what you're looking to do, what your priorities are. Maybe they're set, maybe they're not. How about you tell us about,
So just a quick backstory, when we started working on the criteria and the manual and stuff, kind of like the disclaimer was that it needed to tie into the open space and greenway plan, but it wasn't done yet. And so it might be necessary to tweak some things if some things are different, but we did go through a whole process of, mapping areas, developing criteria, and the criteria were approved by the commissioners. It's just the manual program section that is not yet approved.
So we do have a sheet of criteria that we can get you that was approved
okay,
by the county. If I could give a little backstory to the strategy. Dan was the chair of the campaign committee and pretty much made it all happen, but basically the focus was there's two components, the ag and open space. On the ag side, there were 11 or 12 applications at the time for farm families that wanted to preserve their farms, and there wasn't enough funding. And at the time, the county only allocated $25,000 to the ag program, which was not enough to get money from the Pennsylvania Department of Ag. So when this was passed, the county, Dave committed with the commissioners last year, committed $1 million of that and got 1.4 million from the state. So Dave and the Ag Board, and Dick is the chair of the Ag Board, is working on 5 or 6 or 7 applications now. So this is the first time in the history of the county, something like this is happening. On the open space, we're waiting for a manual to be completed. We expect to have a few applications come in. And basically, when we looked at, I passed the maps around, when we looked at the county, there was probably over 30,000 acres of potential preservation of forested acres. And as you might know, that the largest tracts are gone or have been preserved or are not available. And so, and really, we could have used 30 or 40 million dollars, when we polled it, we were shooting for 20, but the polling lowered, so we went with 10 million. And so we're just waiting for the manual to be completed and the commissioners to kick off the program. And we'll take applications and this board will review them. There will be a staff person with the county who will administer the program. And the way I describe both ag and open space is we're gonna see what the demand is. And unless the county allocates so much for each, in my mind, it's a horse race. Whoever, all the projects will be in the chute, and whoever can complete projects and spend the money, to preserve the land. And obviously, the goal is just the highest conservation value land to protect. Water quality was a big issue. So, we just gotta roll it out and see what the demand is.
Is there like a checklist or
There's a ranking matrix,
ranking matrix? So you have those priorities.
but the ranking
set up?
matrix is part of the program, so I don't think that part is approved yet, but the criteria, which is like the primary, the selection guidelines were approved.
And the ranking matrix is
It builds,
the criteria.
yeah, it's built off the criteria, but it's added, has added numbers added to it, but I don't think that part hasn't been.
That hasn't been
yet.
approved yet. That's,
This advisory board spent months working through that.
they built this program from the ground up. There's nothing. And, Dawn did an awful lot of the groundwork, but this committee really worked at it and really learned a lot along the way and did a good job. And now we're really kind of, just waiting for the commissioners to get this thing approved so we can start the program. We're ready to accept the first application and raring to go.
Chomping at the bit.
But we need the commissioner's approval.
What's the holdup, do you know, with the commissioners, with? We just,
They got Northampton County involved, they signed that MOU, which is just pretty much a 2-page peer-to-peer is in that the Northampton County Ag and Open Space folks will help Carbon County. And, I believe they reviewed it. I haven't heard officially yet if they've returned it back to Carbon County or if the solicitor has completed his review. We're still waiting on all that.
and what about the person that we were going to hire, where are we at with that?
I think they've announced the position and have been doing interviews. I don't know the status beyond that.
Do you know what, Dave, do you know?
Well, but that,
Like, where are we at with hiring the person to help out with this program?
right now, they're finishing up the interview process. And that's about as much as I could say
Okay.
at this point.
So what do you need still? What are you looking for? How can we help you with the program?
I would say that, when we settled for 10 million as our goal to get passed in the referendum, Dennis and I and my wife were the three actually co-chairs. He gave me a little too much credit, but we kind of said, we really want this program to be successful so that when the 10 million is used up and people see how much good it did, we might be able to go for 10 more. And so if we can have things in here that kind of point in that direction somehow, of 10 million isn't enough. 10 million doesn't go very far these days. If there's anything that this plan can do to show then a greater need than the $10 million worth, I think that would be very helpful to the group right here.
And don't forget that 10 million is split between ag preservation
Yeah.
and the open space, so
So it's 5 million, let's just guess and say it's 5 million or something like that.
5 million goes just like that.
And the farmland preservation list is already pretty long, so that's, yeah, there is want for it, it's just a question for this program.
Probably 30 million.
Right.
How about at the municipal level? Is there any type of program going on there or buzz about a program that they could be matching what you're doing or anything of that nature, or going after matching funds or partners that?
Matching funds are required in the program, but yeah, as far as municipalities,
I think that that's one of the things that I was probably most concerned with is how to get the buy-in from the municipalities, because obviously, you know, when we have that, you see the successful places have the municipalities bought in, they have that already established, and I think that when we start rolling this out, I think that one of the key components is getting to the municipalities and seeing how, letting them know how they can progress the program in their specific township if they're bought in as well.
So there's things that municipalities can do that counties can't.
Yeah,
So being able to partner those.
I think it's sort of, the key is to get this manual, get this approved so that we can kick the program out. Then maybe you'll have interest from municipalities once they see that happening.
Yeah, direct stakeholder engagement with the municipalities was part of the, once we had it approved, rollout for the program. And then have that engagement on here's what it is, what would you be interested in doing, and start that dialogue. But until there's a framework, it's real hard for them to look at creating something too.
Yeah, there's a whole education program, as was said, that we, because I don't know that they, municipalities may have looked at how can we put in another ball field and soccer field, but they've not, you know, it's been at a higher level. The Lehigh River Watershed Plan that Wildlands have developed with the county. I don't know that they even know what's available. To know, to realize that, hey, we could look at priorities of open space to protect for our water quality. And so that whole thing has not started yet.
And we have kind of a fear that people have forgotten that we even passed a referendum for this, because there's
Yeah.
nothing has happened.
I mean, we were kicking butt, you know, trying to get this all prepared, really. And, you know, here we are, like sitting, waiting.
Well, by the percentage that it passed, the hard work that you put into it shows. Because the history of all the bonds and everything that goes on for preservation, if there's not an education campaign that goes along with it, chances are it's not gonna pass. And the amount of work and legwork that you put into this, it was a success. It was hard. You didn't say it didn't take any work. It took a lot of work, but that's how it's a successful program. So I think that momentum will carry. And education is something that needs to occur across the board. Municipal officials, they rotate over. Well, either they're there forever or they rotate quickly. But even if they're there forever, policies change, things change, you know, progress is moving forward. So there has to be a continual education, whether we're talking about transportation or an open space topic. So that's one of the big things that's coming out of the comprehensive plan is educating everybody. And I think that's gonna be a common theme through the goals that we set up, is how do we educate people about what's going on, how we preserve what we have here and still have progress.
And I think there's been momentum. I know Ann is listening, right? And still there.
One thing that I do want to bring up with when
I'm
we talk
here.
about municipal, trying to get municipal folks, and we also have to remember that most of our municipalities, the ones that have the staff to actually be able to put together something like that, are the ones that don't have open space. And I'm talking like Lehigh, Jim Thor, Palmerton. They have the biggest staffs in the municipal department, the borough managers, the secretaries, that they could do that. Then you have the smaller ones that actually have more open space, like you're talking East Penn, you're talking Bank, Beaver Meadows. They don't have, some of them don't even have a full-time secretary. So they don't have the office or the people there that really could even do something like this. And that's something where they're gonna need help. They're gonna need a lot of help, they're gonna need a lot of education, and they're gonna need somebody to support them along the way. So I think that's something that should definitely be looked at.
And that's where in my opinion, the county needs to step in and provide that technical assistance. Now, if we look at the county, where the highest conservation forested land is in Penn Forest and Kidder Township. So they both have managers and staff, so that's a good thing. But I was gonna mention Ann and the whole awareness. Ann and her staff have been working for years, and with the Upper Lehigh Watershed Group, there's, I believe, 7 municipalities that have updated their zoning and saldos. And Ann has done an amazing job with that. So that conservation awareness has happened over the last couple of years. It's still a challenge to get municipal officials to enforce what's on the books.
Does Ann wanna say something?
Well, I think you've all covered much of it, but these municipalities can reach out to landowners and be aware when large properties are threatened. Some of them may even be able to have their own local referenda, so they have some matching funds for county and state money. And they can't buy it all, so they do have to stay on top of local regulations. I think right now the fact that warehouses are and trucking terminals are such a threat to the landscape, people are suddenly concerned. So the time may be right to sort of get some on the ground changes that we hadn't seen before. I know Kidder certainly has a citizens movement concerned about a big trucking terminal.
And I have a question about, is there other ways other than referendums, appealing to like maybe budgeting? For the municipalities to straight line budget, something like this?
Municipalities can set aside money in an annual budget to purchase parkland or fund the cost of a even donated conservation easement. Some municipalities feel that they want the voters to formally act, which is why they would go through the referenda process. But
Okay,
not all
yeah.
do. Sometimes they just budget.
The Chestnut Hill budgets, right, Ann?
What again?
Oh, I
What
said
kind of-
Chestnut Hill does that, right?
Yes, they do. And there are a few communities I'm aware of in the southeastern part of the state that have an annual line item in their budget.
Yeah, and municipalities can, do a land tax and a income tax.
Or income tax.
So that's something that you can't do at the county level, but you could do at the municipal level. So there's other ways that they could help supplement.
Typically, it's a referendum to put a little bit of a tax on
Yes.
a lot of money to acquire land.
Yeah, when I talked about a referendum, the earned income tax requires a vote, a referendum.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that you're looking for the study to show there's a need to continue this bond referendum and that the need is greater than what your current bond is. Education across the board, but definitely at the municipal level and how those partners could be tying in and taking advantage of the county program. I think there's some other partners. The Nature Conservancy is kind of pulled out of land acquisition, but there's other partners like that that historically have been active in the county that.
Well, Ellen, who worked on the referendum from the TNC perspective, is now with TPO. So she's still protecting land in this area.
Yeah.
But now with TPO.
So bringing all those partners, not necessarily educating those partners, because they're highly educated on the topic, but bringing them together and at the table and discussing what the needs are and how they could be still working in the county and helping out. Anything else?
On the strategy, you mentioned connectivity with trails, but And again, I've seen county greenway plans of all shapes and sizes. And maybe it's idealistic to think, and I passed around the maps from the final concept maps from 2013. To have definable greenway corridors that encompass all those elements you talked about earlier. I don't know if that's realistic or that, you
So
know,
sometimes they're clearly defined and it's a no-brainer when you look at the map and you could identify those areas. And other projects that we work on, it's establishing that criteria and looking at, how, if you can't see a river flowing through somewhere, or you don't know of a migratory animal pattern or some other corridor, and putting down the criteria of what you're trying to save, and that's how those greenway corridors get established. And it's not necessarily a space on the map, but it's the priorities that you have in the project. So I think Carbon County is gonna be a combination of both. There's some very key areas that you need to be looking at and targeting. And developing that, I think, will be another exercise with the committee and input from all of you folks. But also looking at the criteria that you've established for your program. And does it need to be tweaked? Is there anything else that can be done to help support that?
yeah, I mean, here in the county, we have Kittatinny Ridge, which is an important bird area, so that's an obvious one. The Lehigh River, and even some of the major tributaries are obvious ones. There's other ones that would be not as clear.
Yeah, I mean, Carbon County, you could just take the whole county and say here. So it's really, you gotta start to be very picky and specific. Pike County is another one that's, it's the green blob. They have a lot of outdoor recreation going on there, and there's a lot of people living there, and where the heck do they fit? Like you look at it and you wonder. Something like Lackawanna or Luzerne County, they are really built up. The Lehigh Valley, they're really built up, and some of those corridors are very obvious, and you can't avoid them. But when you have such a wonderful green space like you have, you start looking at, well, where are the gaps? Where is there some scarred land that needs to somehow be brought into that green space? And what do we do to start targeting it, preserving it, or turning it around? So,
Pike County was 1/3 federal lands, 1/3 hunt clubs, and 1/3 the rest. Yeah,
we have one county park that's not developed. And if the commissioners had their way, I don't think they would want that park, but it's looking at outdoor recreation in a different way. It doesn't mean you have to have a county park. But Pike County, when you think Pike County, it's very similar to Carbon County, outdoor recreation. People that had second homes, and now suddenly they're their primary homes. So there's a lot of similar parallels. And now you have at the state level, that Office of Outdoor Recreation. And we're still learning a lot about that and how that's gonna be implemented. And it's not necessarily gonna be money flowing through the county, but it's gonna definitely be helping the county. And how can the county grasp onto that and help your local businesses and help build that outdoor economy in this county? So that's another thing that we're looking at, is how do we tie into that office? And how can the county be an instrument in that? Is the county the right partner, or is there another partner that should be involved? At the comp plan level, we're looking at that, and through this study as well. All right. Any other comments on the open space plan?
Is there any way we can get copies of what you're presenting to us?
Absolutely. I could email it to Dave or Dennis, and then you could distribute it to the committee.
Jason,
And they'll be,
He's the guy.
I'll give it to Jason. I'm getting it with Jason. Yeah, no way.
you're my point of contact,
Yeah.
so. Probably go through you. And we could put, Ashley's furiously typing over there. She'll have the meeting notes, share that as well.
Great, thank you.
timeline up, but so what's the next step?
A drink. So we really need to talk to the key people and start really diving into the details and what needs to be focused on and start extrapolating all that information. It's tough in a county like Carbon because there's so many important things. So many opportunities that could be taken advantage of, and how do you, we're trying to hear your priorities and what you want to do. So.
We have some great ice cream shops. don't we?
You know, after one of the meetings, Ashley and I wandered across the street. All right, I don't remember what the next slide is. It's okay, I do. So we started mapping. This is very, very preliminary. We were looking at, you know, what is public land, where the trails are. And we have a hard copy with us today. We met with Bob Thomas. Some of you at the table may know Bob. He is an architect by training out of Philadelphia. We call him the godfather of trails. I've known him. I think I've known you longer, Dennis, and probably Dawn too. He is a
Bob takes
wonderful.
his folding bike everywhere, even if it's 200 miles from Philadelphia, he shows up.
We met in Allentown with him today, and he started out on a bike, then took a train, and then hopped in with his colleague to get to Allentown in the car. He gave all of his information on Carbon County, and he's working on a lot of larger trails like the 9/11 Trail and the Appalachian Trail and the Chestnut Ridge Trail, and he's worked with the DNL, so, you know, that man has walked a lot of your county or biked it. And he gave us some input. We know there's a lot of data that's still missing from this. It didn't come through in GIS, so we have to go through that. I don't know if we got wildlands data. I don't know. I haven't been the lead on this part of the project, so I'm feeling a little fuzzy on where we are. So don't feel like this is the end all be all of maps. This is our starting point, and we have a lot of red lines.
You know, the easements, both open space and farmland,
Mhm.
farm easement, quite a few.
So we'll start looking at, well, we've already started looking at maps. Diving back into that 2013 study and seeing what was recommended, and I think the committee wanted to strangle us because we wanted to hear more information and what has been done, what hasn't been done, what is no longer a priority, or is there something new that fits on there? So we'll start looking at it spatially, and we're gonna start looking at programming lines, partners, who's important to be at the table that's not at the table. How do we get people involved? And then we're working along with that comp plan update, so really trying to make sure that that comp plan is, you know, the 30,000 foot level, very general, big picture ideas, and then you come down to this study and it's, we say generally it's like the 10,000 foot level, you're diving into more detail. But then the municipal level, and that's the 1,000 foot level, and so there'll be recommendations that come out of this study that are more studies and more things that need to happen at a more detailed level. So as much as we'd love to dive into all that detail, we just can't do it at this time. It's not gonna be able to squeeze into this.
And I'm sure this isn't part of the scope, but I don't know today with all the additional mapping and tools that are out there compared to the 2005 Natural Heritage Inventory of the county that we talked about for years and was never updated. So obviously, we've got the polygon areas that I assume you're gonna add as a layer on that map.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe, and Dawn and I had looked into this, trying to get some funding to update it. And that they do less field work and more mapping. And I don't know if there's a way to have more current information from what's here, what was done on the ground field work to what is available today.
That's our challenge when we do these studies is those inventories and that mapping tends to lag behind. And usually in our study, it's a recommendation that it needs to be updated. We reach out to them and try to get the most current data.
But there's POSDA through Penn State. I mean, isn't there other tools that somebody who has the knowledge
Well,
can?
we would go to somebody like a Wildlands Conservancy and ask them, what have they done? So like, you guys are really on top of things. You have a lot of data. And I know it's never enough data. We always want
I
more.
just wanted to bring this up to NHI that
That's- You're not the only county that's lagging behind in that. There's a lot.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Fred. Is there any way we could see also like the neighboring counties like that are established in this open
And how things extend
and how
beyond the
things
county.
like come, like hooking up with us? Is there anything around our county that we could hook up with?
that's
That was part of our discussion today.
Because the concept was, when I was with DCNR, was that all 67 counties would have a county greenway, trails and open space map. And the boundaries would all mesh with the adjacent counties. So maybe there's a look of a border. So I want to give you something else to do, Steph.
so the other thing that I was thinking about, we did the comprehensive plan back in, what was it, 2014? How much of that trickled down to where it had to go? I mean, are you gonna be able to figure that out? Like, we did this comprehensive plan and it went nowhere, or a portion of it went somewhere, and how do we fix the faults of before? And then additionally to that, the municipalities, do they have some sort of guidance now to update their comprehensive plan based off of the county's comprehensive plan?
So that will be a recommendation of that study, that it needs to drill down further. Because the county has limits on what you can do at a county level. I am not a planner by training. I've never done a comprehensive plan. But working alongside them on this, they are looking at that previous comprehensive plan. But what is more important is today, what does everybody need? And they've identified themes. And a comprehensive plan, there's a list of things they have to include in it. And historically, comprehensive plans were like this book of texts that nobody implemented because you couldn't stay awake trying to read it. Now they try to make what they call implementable plans. And much less text, very direct and to the point. You still have to touch all these topics. But the way that the planners I work with do it is they address themes. Just like we have the goals that we're looking at. And, if your theme is outdoor recreation, well, what falls under outdoor recreation? Transportation, is one of the big ones. And how do you get through the county? How do you get people to the county? Is there public transit or, so those topics fall into those themes. Looking at housing. And if you're gonna have outdoor recreation, where do people stay? And how do you have housing for people of all income levels? And where's appropriate places to put them? So all those topics are gonna be covered in that, there's some public input sessions. We have the survey out there right now that's more focused on this study, but the comp plan is looking at that data as well. Because these two studies are really tied together, and what comes from the comp plan has to come, more detail comes out in this open space study. So
Steph, on that was an excellent question. And if HRG could look at specific, make more definable recommendations, like you said, less text and more definable recommendations for that the municipalities could look at, that a Franklin Township could look at this county plan, and even though the decision-making is at their level, that they would have some clear direction from the county plan. I've seen county plans that have had scorecards that, So that after 10 years, it's like, well, what did we accomplish? What did we implement? And so to be most definable, what we hear, I'm on the county planning commission, and what we hear from Ivan Meisel, who reviews all the subdivision plans is, and all the reviews that we do, it's a question of, is this consistent with the county plan? And there are times we just have to scratch our heads, and it's like,
But I think some of the municipalities have no clue if it's falling in lockstep as well.
right, right.
I think what might be helpful is, if the word resource can be part of this comprehensive plan. So that people know, like, a lot of people don't understand what this is, so I think it could be a comprehensive plan and resource guide, right? So I think maybe that's where it could be a little bit more acceptable or understandable for some of our municipalities to actually say this is a resource. Like, you know what I mean, so just thinking about that, maybe with the title.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good conversation because each municipality thinks about their municipality and very seldom thinks about how they fit into the county. I've been working to preserve the Kittatinny Ridge for over 30 years. And I've testified at hearings in different places on zoning and all kinds of stuff. And every time I go to one of those things, they're talking about their little thing right here and not viewing it as part of this big resource. And that's one of the things I've tried for 30 years to educate people on, that this is not your little place. This is your little part of a very big place that's really important. And so if we can get the municipalities to look at the big picture and see how they fit into it, I think that's a really important step. And speaking of the Kittatinny Ridge, you missed our Lehigh Valley Nature Center on that.
So in Berks County, the county planning office has money to help with multiple municipal joint comprehensive
Yeah.
planning. So like all of the townships along 78 have a joint comprehensive plan, and they can kind of pick and choose how they work together. But the county helped them put that together. It wasn't just relying on the municipalities to figure out how to do that.
And
So
Farming County has 3 or 4 or 5 multi-municipal
Mhm.
plans that I help fund, and with DCED funding and DCNR funding. And it would probably be helpful, not that you need something else, you and the staff need something else to do, but to look at those multi-municipal plans, because what Fred is saying, how do we mesh the county's guidance, which would be a little more general, to those specific multi-municipal plans? The thing I hear from Ann and others is that we don't do in the county is the shared land uses in shared zoning, and like that would solve a number of problems, but municipal A doesn't necessarily work with municipal B.
And that's the challenge across Pennsylvania, because of the way we're set up. That we're down at that micro level, where you look at other states and they operate at the county level.
Well, we had Mahoning, Dayton, and Franklin did our zonings together, so. And South Coast.
So we want something usable and definable is the bottom line.
You don't ask for a lot.
Come on, Steph, I know you can do it.
We're trying.
She's
very
gonna
hard.
regret coming here.
No, I think this is a great conversation, and really, we want it to be used, like you said.
Yeah.
If I had to say how many municipal people have looked at that or even know that exists.
I just did.
No, but seriously, all this time, money and effort going into this, it needs to have a real world application to
And
it.
that's why we ask, what do you need? Because we could just go back and write the study. We don't need any input from anybody. We could just say, here's what you could do. And it goes on a shelf and nobody does a darn thing. And I work really hard on that study. I don't want that to happen.
We don't want that.
It checks a box that,
So we want to know, like,
county-
what are the things that you need, and for it to say that it's a resource and have tools in there that are a resource for not just David and the county staff and your partners, but those municipal partners as well.
I think a good PR campaign with a link, so that it's electronic for people to be able to access it electronically.
As a consultant, yes. I
Yeah.
want that.
And make it as user friendly as possible.
Yeah, there's story mapping, and all kinds of other stuff you can do that it's not a big book like that, but it's a lot more digestible and it's inexpensive.
So if you could look at those multi-municipal plans, I think the one, Lehighton and Mahoning, they won a state or national award. I forget the consultants. Company, but I mean, it was it was a really good plan. And so to look at them and to see how does this new county plan mesh with those existing multi-municipal plans.
Anything else? We've tied up a lot of your time here. I don't know how long your meetings usually are, but I
You only went through 3 slides.
It's Ann, I think we've talked about the need to have plans that help justify DCNR grant applications, the largest funder of open space and parks. So making the case for why this land is so critical.
Did everybody get an opportunity to sign in? Doesn't look. Everybody said something there. All right, well, thank you very much for allowing us to come to your meeting. We appreciate the time. I don't know if we're gonna be coming back in an official capacity, but definitely you'll have the opportunity to review the draft study and we'll be looking for input. Some of you may be aware or have already completed the online survey. I think you put it in here, actually. I did.
There should be some.
So there's a poster with the QR code or the link, the address on there, so you take them, hang them in your municipality or at your organization, share it with friends, family, fellow residents. And we need people to fill out this survey. We really want to hear the input from folks, so this is a community effort and we're meeting everybody's needs. That's all right. Actually, you have anything else?
Got it.
No, we don't. Again, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Any further discussion now that we've gone through that? I know that it's important to what we're doing to have it, all floating. I mean, it's evident that we're an important part of the future of what happens in Carbon County and saving the open space, and it's desirable, that's why we're all here.
I think that it's really important for everybody on this committee to fill out that survey and there's some people that aren't here, so maybe we could put that link in the minutes that when they're sent out.
The slides. Days.
Okay, yeah, we can like scan it in with that.
It's on the bottom of the thing.
You get it.
Well, she already said she was gonna send the slides, so she can send the link with the slides.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, then everybody will get it.
If you have a hard copy, you'll get it electronically, share it far and wide. And it's okay if a non-resident fills it out too, because we try to track who is filling it out. So if it's hanging in your municipal building and somebody comes in, whoever it is, they fill it out, provide some input, and we rank residents higher in the answers.
So we could hang it out at Beltsville.
You get a lot of answers.
Did you get to the fair or did you get rained out?
We did end up at the fair. We were there during the rain. Yes. Yeah, it was a fun time. Like, yeah, definitely get some heavy rain on Tuesday. That was the worst day. So we have one of our other associates with us and I quick ran to the car to drop off our like actual like board so they didn't get completely soaked. And it was as the rain came like just pouring down and I got a text from him saying, stay in the car for a little bit. And it's just like, and he texted me saying he was underneath our canopy. So he's like, yeah, I was just holding it down. So I just imagine him going like this. And I'm just hanging in the car, just waiting it out for a little bit. So definitely an entertaining time. Dedication, right? That's a shame.
Do we have any other comments for them or about the presentation?
If you think of anything afterwards, you could pass it along to us. Through David or Dennis. Always willing to hear some information.
Thanks for coming. Any further business?
September 19th is the next meeting.
I did send a email to the commissioners.
I sat here at this facility for the next meeting. September 19th, the next meeting.
There isn't anything that conflicts with it.
Hmm?
There isn't anything that conflicts with us having it in this building. On September 19th.
No, I think we'll be all right for this.
Yeah, when does the election bureau start to take over? When's the election bureau? Probably at some point, will start to take over before
Yeah,
the November 5th election.
I think we'll be all right down in September. But we'll double check on everything.
All right, hearing no other further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
And second? All in favor?
Aye.
You know, chair.